The fear in her eyes, the alien girl sat in the cold shadow of the wrecked ship, her small body pressed tightly against a wall of twisted metal. The air smelled of smoke and burned wires, sharp and bitter, stinging her nose every time she tried to breathe. Her ears rang from the crash, the sound still echoing in her head like a heavy drum. Every muscle in her body ached, but she dared not move. Not when she knew something was out there. She clutched her knees to her chest, feeling the thin fabric of her clothes tremble with her shivers. Her skin, pale and soft like the leaves of her homeworld's moonflowers, was now coated in a thin layer of dust. She was alone, truly alone, surrounded by pieces of her people's proud ship, now broken and silent, the others. She didn't know if they had escaped or if the fire had taken them, but right now, she had no time to think about them, because she had seen movement. It had been quick, almost hidden, just a shape between the trees, a tall figure walking slowly. She had hoped it was another survivor, maybe one of her people, but then she had seen it clearly. A human. Her heart had skipped, then raced. Every story, every warning she had ever heard about humans came flooding back into her mind. Her people had told her since she was a child humans were predators. They had strong teeth to tear flesh, eyes that watched every movement of their prey, hands that could crush bones, and no mercy for the weak. She remembered sitting in the learning halls of her village, the elders telling tales of how humans had crossed the stars, not just to explore, but to conquer, to take what they wanted. They were dangerous, unpredictable, and now one was walking toward her. She pressed herself deeper into the shadows, her breath shallow, her eyes fixed on the narrow crack in the metal wall that let her see the outside. The human was getting closer. He was tall, wearing strange clothing, dark fabric, and a smooth covering on his chest that shone faintly under the light. His steps were steady, not rushed, like a hunter who knew his prey had nowhere to run. Her tail, thin and soft, curled tightly around her leg, a nervous habit she had since childhood. She could hear her own heartbeat, loud and fast. The stories had said that once a human saw you, it was over, and she was sure he had seen her. Why else would he be moving in this direction? The air outside was quiet, no wind, no birds, no forest sounds. It was as if even the world was holding its breath. She dared not make a sound. Her survival depended on it. Then she heard it, the sound of boots on the ground, heavy, deliberate. The soft crunch of leaves and the dull thud of steps on broken metal. Each sound felt like a countdown to her end. She shut her eyes for a moment, trying to wish herself invisible, but when she opened them again, his shadow was longer. He was closer, the predator's footsteps. The human was close now, so close that the alien girl could hear the faint hiss of air leaving his mouth when he breathed. It was slow, steady breathing, the kind of rhythm that belonged to someone calm and in control, not the frantic panting of a person afraid, not the uncertain steps of someone lost. This was the walk of a predator. His boots pressed down on the broken debris of the crash site. Each step sent a vibration through the metal floor beneath her. She could feel it in her legs, in her back, as if the wreckage itself was warning her, he's here. A distant clatter echoed as his foot caught a loose piece of metal. The sound made her flinch so hard that her shoulder brushed against a sharp edge. Pain shot through her arm, but she bit her lip to keep from making a sound. Through the narrow gap in the twisted wall, she saw his shape grow larger. The sunlight caught the edge of his helmet. It wasn't like anything she had seen before. Dark, smooth, shaped to fit his head perfectly. Her mind twisted it into an image of an armored predator. Something meant for battle, for hunting. She thought of running. But where could she go? The forest outside was thick and full of dangers her people had warned her about. And even if she escaped into the trees, humans could track. They could follow a scent, read a trail, find a hiding place that seemed safe. There was no safety from a creature like that. Her breath caught as the human stopped walking. He was no longer coming closer, but he wasn't turning away either. He just stood there, motionless, listening. She could feel it. He was listening. For her, The silence between them was heavy, the kind of silence that made her heartbeat feel like it was echoing in the air. Then came the sound that made her blood run cold, the slow, deliberate shifting of his boots as he changed direction. Not wandering, not searching, moving straight toward her hiding spot. Her claws dug into the dirt at her feet. She wanted to vanish into the shadows, but the shadows felt too thin now, too fragile to hide her. His steps were unhurried, the sound of them was steady, and each one felt like a signal counting down to the moment he would find her. 3 steps away, 2 steps. 1. The human stopped right outside the gap in the wreckage. She could see the shape of his arm now, broad, strong, covered in layers of strange cloth and armor. He reached up slowly, his shadow stretched over her hiding space, and then his voice came low, deep, and certain. "I know you're there." The unexpected voice. The alien girl froze when she heard the words. They were not shouted, not sharp. They came like a calm wave in a still lake. Low, steady, almost gentle. But that made her even more afraid. Because she had been told predators could be clever. They could speak softly to trick their prey. They could pretend to be harmless until the moment they struck. Her body stayed pressed against the cold metal. She didn't answer, didn't even breathe too loudly. Maybe if she stayed still, maybe if she became like a stone, he would lose interest. But the shadow outside didn't move. It stayed, strong and dark. He was still there, waiting. Then after a moment, the voice came again. "I'm not here to hurt you." The words felt strange in her ears. She had learned some human language during her studies, enough to understand his meaning, but that didn't mean she trusted it. Kind words could be the start of a trap. She had seen hunters on her own planet use similar tricks to catch small, frightened creatures. Her eyes darted to the side. A small gap in the wreckage let her see the forest beyond him. If she could run fast enough, maybe she could lose him among the tall trees. But then she remembered humans could run fast too. And they had endurance. Her kind could sprint for a short while, but humans could keep running until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. The human's arm moved. Slowly, carefully, he bent down and placed something on the ground in front of the wreckage. It was a container, small and round, clear enough that she could see the water inside. Her throat tightened. Her mouth was dry. She had not had a drink since before the crash. But the elders' voices echoed in her mind. Never take food or drink from a predator, for it might be poisoned. Still, the water caught her eyes again, clear, fresh-looking. It made her throat ache with need. She tried to push the thought away, but her body reminded her she was thirsty. So thirsty that her lips were cracked and her tongue felt heavy. The human stepped back a little, just far enough that she could see his full figure through the gap. He was standing tall, his arms at his sides. His posture wasn't aggressive, not like the stories had described. There was no weapon in his hands, no rush to attack. He just stood there, watching, waiting. The alien girl's mind spun. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. Predators didn't wait. Predators didn't offer water. They took what they wanted by force. But here he was, still calm, like a puzzle she couldn't understand. Her hands trembled as she thought about what to do. If she stayed here, she would be safe from him for a little while, but not from her thirst. If she moved, she might take the water. But what if that was exactly what he wanted? What if the moment she stepped into the open, he would strike? The forest wind shifted. A cool breeze carried the scent of the water toward her. It was clean, no strange chemical smell, just pure, fresh water. Her mind and body fought in silence, fear against need, suspicion against survival. And all the while, the human waited. His voice came one more time, softer now. "You don't have to be afraid." But those words only made her heart beat louder, because she was afraid, afraid of him, afraid of what might happen if she stopped being afraid. A risky step. The alien girl stared at the water, her eyes fixed on the small container resting on the ground outside her hiding place. It was so close, close enough that she could crawl forward and take it, but it also felt impossibly far away, because the space between her and the water was open. And in that open space stood danger. Her hands tightened on the edge of the metal wall. The rough surface dug into her skin. She could feel the dirt under her fingernails, the cool air brushing over her dry lips. Her mouth felt like sand. Every swallow was painful. Every second she waited made her thirst worse. The human didn't move. He stood there, still as a stone. Not speaking now, just watching. The way his helmet caught the sunlight made his face a shadow. She couldn't see his eyes, and not seeing his eyes made her more afraid. Ice told you if someone was lying. Ice told you if they were about to strike. Her heart pounded as she thought about her people's rules. Never step into the open when a predator is near. Never show your weakness. But she had already shown it. She knew he could see her hesitation. And a predator could smell fear. That's what the stories said, and if that was true, then he could smell her fear like a trail of blood. A sharp pain in her throat made her close her eyes for a moment. She imagined cool water sliding over her tongue. She imagined her body relaxing, her head feeling light and calm. The thought was so strong she had to bite her lip to pull herself back, because those thoughts were dangerous. They could make her take a step she couldn't undo. Her ears caught a new sound. It was the forest behind the human. Leaves shifting softly in the breeze. A distant bird-like cry. It almost felt peaceful. But she knew that peace could shatter in an instant. One wrong move, one wrong step, and it would be over. She shifted slowly. Her knees scraped against the wreckage floor. The movement felt loud in the silence. But the human didn't react, or maybe he did. She couldn't tell. His shadow shifted slightly, and her chest tightened again. One hand reached forward. Her fingers brushed against the cold metal edge of the opening. The sunlight outside felt warm against her skin, too bright, too open. She pulled her hand back quickly, her breathing sharp. She told herself she wasn't ready yet. She told herself to wait, but her body wasn't listening anymore. The thirst was stronger than her fear now. It pulled at her like an invisible chain, dragging her toward the water. She lowered herself to the ground, her movements slow and careful, like a shadow sliding along the floor. The wreckage groaned faintly under her weight, a sound that made her freeze. Her heart stopped for a beat. She waited, but still, the human didn't move. Her head tilted up just enough to see him. He stood exactly where he had been, no weapon in his hands, no sudden movement, just watching, waiting. It made her skin crawl. Was he patient because he was kind, or because he enjoyed this slow fear? Her fingers touched the dirt outside. The ground was cool. She dragged herself a little further, her eyes locked on the container. Every inch forward felt like a mile. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Her breath came in soft, shallow pulls, her body tense, ready to spring back if he moved even a little. Finally, her hand touched the container. Her fingers curled around it. The plastic was smooth. Inside, the water glimmered in the light. Her throat ached so badly it felt like her entire body was begging for that first sip. She pulled it back toward the shadows, her eyes never leaving the human. He didn't step forward. He didn't try to stop her. That made her hesitate even more. She lifted the container to her lips. But she didn't drink, not yet. Her nose caught the clean scent of the water. No bitterness, no strange smell. It smelled like safety. But she knew better than to believe in safety. Her people's voices rang again in her mind. Sometimes a predator will feed you so you are strong enough to run, but not strong enough to escape. The thought made her grip tighten on the container. The human was still silent, still unmoving, still watching, and she knew whatever happened next would decide if she lived, or if she never saw her home again. Stories collide. The alien girl held the container close to her chest, the cool surface pressed against her skin, reminding her that the water was real. But she still didn't drink, not yet. Her eyes stayed fixed on the human. Every small movement of his body made her muscles tense. Her ears twitched to catch even the faintest sound. The air between them felt like a thin rope, stretched, fragile, ready to snap at any moment. Finally, the human spoke again. His voice was calm, slow. "I came here to help," he said. Words were simple, but to her they felt heavy. Help was not a word she trusted. Help could be a lie. Help could be the first step into a trap. She did not answer. Instead, she kept watching him. Her people had always said that humans used their words like weapons, that they could twist the truth until it sounded like kindness. Her mother had told her stories by the fire of human ships, arriving on faraway worlds, of promises made and then broken, of peace offered and then shattered. The human seemed to notice her silence. He crouched down a little, lowering himself so he was not towering above her. It made him look smaller, less threatening, but she knew size could be a trick. Predators could lower themselves to appear harmless, until the moment they struck. "My name is Daniel," he said slowly. "I'm part of a rescue team." She heard the name. It was strange in her mouth when she tried to imagine saying it. Sharp in the middle, soft at the end. Her own name would sound strange to him too, but she wasn't going to give it. Names had power, and she wasn't ready to hand him any power over her. She stayed silent. The human sighed softly. He looked toward the forest for a moment, scanning the shadows between the trees. She noticed it too. The forest was quiet in a way that made her uneasy. It was as if the whole world around them was listening to their meeting. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. "Humans eat people like me," she said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Her people had spoken it as fact for generations. She waited for his reaction. Would he laugh? Would he admit it? Instead, Daniel blinked and shook his head. "No," he said softly. "We don't eat people, not like you." His tone was not angry, not defensive. It was more confused, as if he was surprised she would even think that. Her chest tightened. "Then why? Why do the elders tell us stories about you?" she asked. "They say you come to take, to kill, to feed." Daniel's eyes softened. He took off his helmet slowly, revealing his face for the first time. His hair was dark and messy, his eyes a deep brown. They were not the cold, predator eyes she had imagined. They were warm, searching, trying to understand her. "Maybe your people met humans who were not good," he said. "Or maybe they feared what they didn't know." He looked down at the ground for a moment. "I've heard stories about aliens too. Stories that say they can't be trusted." He looked back at her. "But you don't seem like a monster to me." Her heart thudded hard. No one had ever called her anything but prey in stories about humans. No one had ever looked at her like that. Not with hunger, but with something else. It was strange, uncomfortable. Yet a small part of her wanted to believe him. She tightened her grip on the container of water. Her thirst was still there, but now another thirst was growing too. A thirst for answers, for the truth. She didn't know yet if she could trust this human named Daniel, but for the first time since she had seen him, she felt something other than fear. She felt curiosity. The truth revealed. The air shifted. It was sudden, sharp, like a thread pulled tight until it was ready to snap. The alien girl's ears twitched. Something was wrong. The forest was too still. Even the faint chirps of the small creatures had vanished. The wind carried a scent she knew, musky, thick, the smell of a hunter that was not human. Daniel seemed to sense it too. His head turned toward the trees. His eyes narrowed, scanning the shadows with sharp focus. The casual calm in his body changed. His shoulders stiffened. His stance widened. This was not the posture of a man waiting. This was the posture of someone ready. She gripped the container of water tighter. Her heart raced. Every instinct screamed at her to crawl deeper into the wreckage and hide. She knew this scent. She had smelled it once before, during a migration on her homeworld. It belonged to a predator that hunted silently until it was already too late. From the tree line came a low growl. The sound rolled through the air like thunder under the ground. Her blood ran cold. She saw it then. A shape moving between the trunks, 4 legs, long and thin but packed with muscle. Its eyes glowed faintly. In the dim light, focused on her, not Daniel, her. She froze. Her breath stopped. It was like every story she had ever heard about death was walking toward her. The creature's jaws parted slightly. Rows of thin, needle-like teeth caught the light. Her mind was already seeing herself in those jaws. Daniel moved, not away from her, not toward safety. He moved forward, placing himself between her and the creature. His body was a barrier, his presence blocking her from the predator's view. Her eyes widened. No human in the old stories had ever done that. Predators did not protect prey. Predators did not stand in front of danger. "Stay back," Daniel said over his shoulder. His voice was firm, no longer soft or cautious. It carried the tone of command. She didn't move, couldn't move. Her body was locked in place. Her mind caught between fear for herself and a strange fear for him. The forest seemed to hold its breath. The predator took a slow, silent step forward. Daniel's hand moved to his side. She saw him draw a long, dark object, a weapon. Not the kind from the old myths. It was sleek, precise, a tool of survival. The predator lunged. It was a blur of fur and teeth. Daniel moved fast, faster than she thought a human could. He shifted sideways, one arm swinging out. The weapon released a sharp sound. A pulse of light and force struck the predator in the side. It let out a pained snarl, twisting away, but it wasn't finished. Daniel didn't stop. He stepped forward. Every movement was controlled. Every strike of his weapon was measured. He wasn't attacking to kill. He was driving it back, keeping it away from her. The alien girl's heart pounded as she watched. This was not the hunt her elders had described. This was a fight to protect. Daniel's back never turned away from her. Even as the predator circled, he moved to match it. A living wall between her and danger. Finally, the creature hissed. Its glowing eyes flicked between them. Then it turned and slipped back into the shadows of the forest. The silence that followed felt heavy, the kind of silence that came after a storm. Daniel lowered his weapon slowly. His breathing was steady. He turned to look at her. "You're safe now," he said, and in that moment, the stories in her mind cracked, not all the way, but enough to let in the first light of doubt. A new understanding. The alien girl sat frozen in the shadow of the wreckage, her fingers still gripping the container of water, as if it were the only solid thing in the world. Her chest rose and fell in quick, uneven breaths. The echoes of the predator's growl still rang faintly in her ears. But over those echoes came another sound. Daniel's voice, steady and calm, telling her she was safe. Safe. It was a word she had never thought could come from a human. Not in the way she had been taught. Her people's stories had always painted humans as the danger. But the danger had just come from the forest, and the human had stood between her and its teeth. He had not run. He had not used her as bait. He had protected her. Daniel took a slow step toward her, his weapon now lowered, his hands open and empty. He didn't rush, didn't demand her trust. His eyes met hers, and she realized they were not the cold, calculating eyes of a predator. They were steady, warm, almost patient. "Are you hurt?" he asked gently. She shook her head, still too unsure to speak. But the truth was she felt something strange in her chest. A weight she hadn't noticed before was beginning to lift. The wind shifted again, carrying the scent of the forest and the faint metallic tang of the wreckage. The air felt lighter somehow, not as heavy with fear. Daniel glanced toward the trees, still on alert, but then looked back to her. "You shouldn't stay here," he said. "It's not safe." Those words would have terrified her before, because to leave with a human was to vanish forever in the old tales. But now she found herself hesitating for a different reason. Her eyes went to the place where the predator had disappeared. The shadows looked deeper there, and she realized that if Daniel had not been here, she would not have lived long enough to worry about trusting him. Her fingers loosened on the container. Slowly, she lifted it to her lips. The water touched her tongue, cool, fresh, and real. It slid down her throat and filled her with a relief so deep it made her eyes sting. She lowered the container and looked at him again. "You didn't have to save me," she said quietly. Daniel's expression softened. "That's what we do," he replied. "We help." She thought about those words. They didn't match the stories. They didn't match the warnings. But they matched what she had just seen. And she realized that maybe the stories were only one truth among many. Daniel extended a hand to her, not grabbing, just offering, an open hand, a choice. For a long moment she didn't move, her mind still pulling against the weight of her people's fear. But slowly, very slowly, she reached out, her fingers brushed. The contact was strange, warm, strong, alive, not the touch of a monster, but the touch of someone who had stood between her and death. When she stepped out of the wreckage, the light hit her face fully for the first time since the crash. It felt different now, brighter. She walked beside him toward the forest path, the same forest that had terrified her minutes ago. But with him there, it didn't feel like an endless trap. It felt survivable. Her people's voices would still live in her memory. The warnings, the fear, the distrust. But now another voice lived there too. One that had stood against a predator. One that had said she was safe. And perhaps, she thought, the universe was not as dangerous as she had believed. Perhaps humans were not only what the stories had told. Perhaps they could be something more. As they walked away from the wreckage, the alien girl glanced at Daniel, her steps still careful. But her eyes no longer only filled with fear. There was something else there now. Something new, a question, a beginning, and for the first time, she allowed herself to wonder what other truths the universe might hold.